r/ask Reddit. What's the creepiest thing that you've seen other families do that they accept as totally normal? There was a family of girls I went to church with and none of them were allowed to cut their hair. They had to wait until they were 16 so they wouldn't get a haircut they'd regret, because the mother had. They also weren't allowed to talk at the dinner table. One time one of the daughters was laughing at something and coughed on her food. The mom was afraid of one of them choking and dying, so talking was banned. No one told me that when I came over for dinner. I just talked and they all stared at me. Talk about taking out your anxiety issues on your children. I take my anxiety out on dates. He says he wants to be a doctor. I went to this guy's house once after school. I wasn't friends with him, but we were assigned to a project together. We'll call him Gary. Anyways, we were working on this project when he excused himself to use the restroom. 15 minutes later he returned. A little while later, I decided to use the restroom while he was making snacks. I walked into the bathroom and behold, before my eyes, floating like a manatee through the brown estuaries of Florida, was the result of Gary's earlier bathroom excursion. I shrugged it off. I mean, we all forget at least once, right? Flushed for him, took a leak, flushed again, and went to work on the project. Gary's mom gets home from work a couple hours later. She nods to us and says hello politely before heading towards the back of the house. A few seconds later she returns to the kitchen where we were working and screams, "Where is IT?" I jump and am confused. So I shoot a WTF look to Gary. Gary muttered it wasn't me, it was the cosmic coaster. His mom glared at me, huffed, and walked out. Gary later explained that every day after school he would take a dump and was required to leave it in the toilet so his mom could check it. He wasn't even sick or anything. She just wanted to check it to make sure he was healthy or something. I never went back to Gary's house. Edit. We were 16/17 at the time. I failed to realize this makes it all the weirder. Edit 2. Wow. Thanks for the gold. I would have never guessed it would be for a post about Gary's shit inspector mom. Edit 3. Grammar. Edit 4. I don't know if Gary had German ancestry, but as far as I could tell, his parents were typical Midwestern parents, apart from the shit inspecting. Thank you. This is exactly the type of weird shit I am reading this thread for. Gary had worms. His mom was just making sure the medication was working. Not drinking anything with dinner. They would have dinner. Then after dinner someone would bring out a pitcher of water and glasses and they'd sit around the table. All drink their glasses of water without talking. Put them down. And walk away. Edit. Welding. Now I know why so many people are chronically dehydrated. Sounds like a ritual. I guess they can't hold a conversation if they're all on the verge of choking. Wonder what they do at restaurants. We said no drinks. Popeye's biscuits are also out of the question. Went to a friend's house when I was 17. She asked her mom for a snack and her mom brought out a huge raw white onion completely slathered in mayo on a plate and she and my friend just went at it with their forks like it was filet mignon. 3 years later and I still think about that shit from time to time. Sounds like a pretty good strategy, actually. Get your kids accustomed to eating super inexpensive, weird shit, like raw onions and mayo early on. Save a ton of money on food. Dad, you want some of my mayonion? No thank you. Son, that's your special snack. I'll just have these nasty Doritos. Mayonion goes well with the mayonnaise. www.youtube.com watch v equals 2006 IEQKFNI. I knew a girl in high school who had parents who were obsessed with dinner plates. They had such a huge collection of collectible plates in their house that every room was full of them on display. Their entire house was basically a library set up for these things. Her bedroom was a mattress on the floor surrounded by display cases of plates. You couldn't even lean on any wall. They were all like this. The last time I went over there I knocked one off the wall by mistake. I caught it and it didn't even break, but my god, the rage her dad flew into was ducking horrifying. He was inches away from punching me. Never went back. They tried to nervously laugh it off like haha good ole dad being funny haha. The one time I asked my friend why they had so many, she went on a passionate tangent about all the cool plates they had and why they were so awesome. It went on for an hour. I never asked again because hearing about neat dishware for an hour was like torture. Edit. I just looked her up on Facebook. She works now as a Tupperware consultant. Seriously? Interviewer, why do you want to work for Tupperware? Woman, I have a deep passion for dinnerware. Interviewer, haha, never heard that one before. Next woman, no, gets an interviewer's face. I'm serious. Did she want to have all those plates in her room? Or was that forced upon her? Because it seems kinda ducked up to force your kid to sleep on the floor of one of your many plate display rooms. Edit, I did not say that this was child abuse. I just said it was kinda ducked up. I also realize that sleeping on the floor and sleeping on a mattress on the floor are different things. I just mean it's kind of unusual to make your kid sleep on the floor in a room full of plates. Considering how expensive collector plates are. My grandmother collects them. I doubt she slept on a mattress on the floor out of necessity. An old friend's mum was completely paranoid that Al Qaeda would storm the small British town they lived in. Her solution? Have a massive bomb shelter built under their house. Not the weird part, though. About 5 times a year, she would spend literally thousands and thousands of pounds on groceries to stock the shelter with. By this, I mean she would genuinely buy out the whole supermarket. It would take her about 20 trips over a week. Not just canned food, but perishables. 2. I only found this out by sleeping over on one of her shopping days, where food covered literally every single surface of their massive house. My friend just shrugged it off and was yep, just restocking our bomb shelter. We always need to be ready for invasion. The duck? Does wealth make you stupid or do stupid people get rich? Both, unfortunately. The act itself isn't creepy, but I was very creeped out until I realized what was happening. I was at my so's house, and her mom was cooking and said, I think it's about that time. Immediately the entire family, mom, dad, and 6 siblings, started simultaneously mumbling something I couldn't understand. After they finished and saw the look on my face, my so said they just said grace, but everybody is in a rush to eat, which is why I couldn't hear what they were saying. I thought they were going to sacrifice me. Bliss us a Lord forth us the gifts which we're about to receive from the bounty Frau Crystal Orderman. My family says this in one breath before dinner/family meals. It's considered bad form to have food in your mouth while mumbling it, but mostly because nobody wants to hear that. My aunts were teasing each other recently because they realized that most of us don't actually know the words. We learned it as or before we learned how to talk, and just know the sounds to make, not the actual words. Edit. I ducked up the prayer because I don't actually know the words. Bliss us a Lord forth us the gifts which we're about to receive from the bounty Frau Crystal Orderman as one of the few Catholic families in an otherwise Protestant part of the country. This rendition of the prayer freaked out a lot of my childhood friends. I am told it is a little disconcerting at first, but people warm up to my very mixed family. Here is the background. Both of my parents have divorced parents that never spoke to each other and never wanted to be like that when they divorced. So we have large family get-togethers where all my siblings and all my step-siblings hang out with my mom, dad, stepdad, and stepmom. This includes international vacations, various birthday parties, and Valentine's Day. We just all get along and we are from a small town. It's especially helpful because last year my stepmom was paralyzed from the chest down and my mom helps take care of her. I think that's beautiful. Agreed. I wish my family would stop trying to kill each other. I went to a friend's house and we put some cartoons on. While we were watching I asked him a question but he didn't respond. He was fixated on the TV, absolutely glued. His chilled minder just laughed, oh he'll be like that all evening now. So I just had to wait for my parents to pick me up whilst he unflinchingly watched TV for hours. My sister is like this. As soon as a TV comes on she gets so distracted she can barely make comprehensible sentences. She has a PhD. She runs a medical lab for cancer research as well as owning a nutrition-oriented produce delivery service. She is literally trying to cure cancer, but as soon as a TV comes on around her she gets all confused and distracted. It's hilarious actually. My dad just loses all sense of the outside world. I've screamed at him from about 3 feet away and nothing. It'd be impressive if it wasn't so ducking annoying and creepy. A friend from high school theater used to invite me over to her family's house all the time. Her mom collected large vintage dolls, like child-sized ballerinas, Victorian girls, and this one overly happy clown. They'd dress it up in their own clothing and place it around the house like it was a family joke that it was alive. They also collected and played didgeridoos as a family group. It sounds cool, but they were all pretty odd individuals. And this one overly happy clown, no hell no. We don't have a clown doll. Call 911. Encouraging their teen daughters to have kids as early and as often as possible because then they could live off welfare and child support and wouldn't need to work. Less creepy and more ducked up. Pathetic actually. Wouldn't need to work. He was going to say that kids are a lot of work. But then I thought the kinds of people who have kids for welfare money don't put that much effort into taking care of their kids. Anyway, she should encourage them to find a military guy while they're at it for that coveted Dependopotamus triceratops status. They put milk first, cereal second, creeps. Sick ducks. This is the worst in this thread. That seems borderline abusive. Definitely neglectful. My senior year in high school, I lived a town over so I would have to get a ride to and from school. Didn't have a license. That ride was always from my 50-year-old uncle that has been living off of my family since 2009. One day on the way home, we are driving down a road that has like a 15 mph speed limit. I glance over at my uncle and he isn't even watching the road. He's looking somewhere off on the sidewalk. I notice we are about to drive past two girls that couldn't have been older than 13. I think to myself, there is no way that this is what he is gawking at. We start to pass them, and sure enough his head turns as we pass them, looking back at them. I go, "You're pedophile." This man says, "Not yet." Self-control. The difference between a pedophile and creepy man. Edit. I'm glad someone laughed hard enough that gold came out of their nose instead of milk. Pretty sure he's still a pedophile, just not a sex offender. I went on a road trip with a friend's family one time. It was a 5-hour drive, and the entire time, no one spoke. It was completely silent, no music, no talking, nothing. And even though they had drank tons of liquids before getting in the car, no one had to pee during that 5-hour drive. Weirdest and most unsettling drive of my life. Definitely has to be my neighbors when I was younger. I hung out and played with these 3 siblings. They were all pretty normal kids, but the mom seemed kind of clingy. During the summer we would play outside a lot. Baseball, hockey, go-karts, swimming. The norm. Every single day at about 12, the mom would call the kids back to the house, one at a time. They would have to go inside for about a half hour, then come out and the next kid would go in. Never thought too much about it, until one day I was actually in their house with them and found out why she called them. She had mandatory cuddle time with each of the kids. They would lay on the couch, and she would spoon them, in the quiet, for about 30 minutes each. Weirdest thing I've ever encountered. Edit. No, her name was not Beverly Goldberg. How much are we betting that she is heavily involved in their marriages now? I went on vacation with my buddy when we were kids. They weren't religious, but before every meal they would all say the same chant about being a better person and trying your best. It was really creepy because they would all say it in the same monotone voice. It turned out the mom was just tired of everyone eating before she got to the table, so she made up the tradition. I think this is hilarious. I can almost picture her laughing inside as they reluctantly monotone their way through their little chant. That'll teach the little duckers to wait for me. Something that I have witnessed for years only began to hit me as the realization slowly unfolded. A family that I visited frequently with all adult children who still live with their parents would coincidentally always have the same exact movie on every single time I visited. They all huddle around as though they are only watching it for the first time. Once, when I actually stayed over for a longer duration, when the movie finally ended, the TV was finally turned off only to be turned on again and the play button was then pressed for the same movie. I finally realized that this movie is watched multiple times a day. Every single day. Almost like a ritual, and all the members of the family react the same way to the same scene repeatedly as if they have never seen it before. Edit. For all those asking what movie, it was called Just Ask My Children. They're NPCs. What movie? We had a family friend whose dad would take cuddling and kissing with his 2 daughters to another level. Like they're both in college now and they still sit on his lap, cuddle up and kiss him all over. Cheeks, neck, lip pecks, etc. All in public. It's not the first time I saw something like this, but it's probably the worst case. Sounds perfectly normal and healthy to me. I like the cut of your jib. I know a woman who was a manager at the restaurant my wife worked at who was living through her 13-year-old girl to an extreme level. The girl would come up to the restaurant from school and her mom would trash her for how shitty her makeup was and ask her how she expected to get Brent or Jason or whoever looking like that. 90% of what she talked about with coworkers was her daughter's school drama. She would read her texts, give her strategies and things to say, etc. Always trashing her appearance or telling her she needed to dress sluttier before going to the football game and weird shit like that. Talked about how she encouraged boys coming over and how she liked to spy eavesdrop, and with a twinkle of pride, told us how she walked in daughter's room recently and found her coming out from under the covers in her bed this boy was in, right in the middle of a possible BJ. I was 16 dating a 14-year-old and this could easily have been her mom. She was always trying to get us to duck. Basically made rules that meant the only way I could see her daughter was to spend hours in the girl's bedroom. Just a girl and me, and yeah, we usually ended up in bed. But this was the 90s and we were taught that having sex would lead immediately to pregnancy and death by HIV/AIDS, so we usually just spent hours between third base and home plate, but never scored any runs. Because, you know, pregnancy and death. Thinking eating ketchup packets for a snack was normal. Ducking growth, and they would feed their middle school children baby food and they loved that shit. Applesauce is basically baby food. Not if it has cinnamon. I have an ex whose family would literally burn any meat they cooked for dinner. Chicken, fish, steak, all completely burned. They were terrified about bacteria on their food. I got them to cook my steak medium well, less burned, but still above well once, but I got some serious looks of disgust. The mother also forced me to draft a living will and instructed me on the proper way to seal a room to protect from a very likely chemical attack with duct tape and plastic sheeting. And then they all got cancer because they regularly ate charred meat. Edit. For everyone asking, here you go. Yes, this is a thing. There was a weird kid in my neighborhood named Neil. He had a club foot. That's not what was weird, it's just sort of memorable. Anyway, we were invited to his birthday party down the street. His parents sent invites that we were to bring a present and $10 to cover the costs of hosting the party. My mom was annoyed and confused but sent us with the presents and the money. We had to give the money to Neil's parents before they let us in the house. We were each given one water balloon to throw, and exactly one slice of cake. Then we gave this kid his present and his parents sent everybody home after maybe half an hour. That's so incredibly trashy. I feel bad for that guy. Not that creepy, but my ex-boyfriend used to call his mom whenever he was stressed so that she could assure him that everything would be okay. He used to send her messages like, "Is everything going to be okay, Mom?" And she'd reply with, "Don't worry, you'll be okay." He was 28 at the time. He also gave her all his passwords so she could access his bank accounts and take care of his finances. And he got sent to a really cool destination for work for 2 weeks and spent the entire time moping about how much he missed his family. I love my parents and all, but come on. Sounds like he had some pretty bad anxiety issues and his mom should have sent him to the doctor. Yes, I agree. He did eventually seek help with this stuff, though I don't know the outcome. The thing that bothered me was that his mother never encouraged him to develop the skills to handle these things. She just took care of everything for him without question. Tell everyone everything going on in their kid's life, no matter how private it is. I had a professor at college just walk into an empty classroom I was studying in and go on and on about how her 9-year daughter was looking for naked pictures of Justin Bieber on her iPad. I just sat there and was like, yeah, that sucks. Whoa. You made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.